Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to stand up and talk to part 2 of the bill. And it's, the wording around this is actually quite interesting, because what this relates to, Mr. Chair, is Schedule 1 of the Income Tax Act 2007. And the wording in that act is actually quite humorous, because what it says is a person's taxable income. This is the formula for deriving a person's taxable income. Quote, tax under table 1 divided by taxable income. And you read that and you go, tax under table, well, goodness me, are we including that now? Luckily, they define tax under table 1. There's a table 1 below it. So it's not actually tax under table, comma 1. It's actually tax under table 1, which specifies the rates. But I suppose if you read that in a particular way, it may be talking about the tax you have received under the table, and that's what you're eligible for. Mr. Speaker, this is an interesting part of the legislation, because not surprisingly, no one submitted on Part 2 to the Select Committee. But I suspect if they had submitted on Part 2 onto the rates, and if it was open to debate, then it would have been quite a robust debate, and I suspect there would have been a whole lot of submitters who argued that the tax rates as they stand under Part 2 are unfair and are wrong. And I suspect what they would have done, Mr. Chair, because we debated tax legislation last night, and all submitters but 2 said that the legislation was rushed, it was not fit for purpose, and it will only cause a whole lot of problems going forward. And I suspect, Mr. Chair, if we had called for submissions on Part 2, and of course the reason we didn't call for submissions on Part 2, or the reason no one submitted on Part 2 of the Act, as on clause 65, I'm talking about Mr. Bennett, the reason no one did put submissions on this is because they knew it would be a complete and utter waste of time. They knew it would be a waste of time submitting on Section 65, because the government would have listened. It's gone through anyway. It is actually retrospective, and so what's the point? I wonder if next time this comes up, because it comes up every year, clause 65 or whatever the name is on the particular bill, if we call for submissions on this, knowing that of course it won't have any impact, but then again the government isn't listening to submissions on a whole lot of this stuff, what sort of submissions we would get and how long?
Order. I'm now going to draw the member back to the bill, and submissions that were not made are certainly not part of the debate at this stage of the bill.
How much longer?
Stuart Nash.
Okay. Well, I was trying to. Well, what Part 2 does is, as has been alluded to, it is under the Income Tax Act 2007. By and large, the Income Tax Act 2007 and all tax legislation made before 2008, of which this is a piece of legislation, was very good tax legislation, and what it actually did is set the country and New Zealand's families up to reap the rewards of a prosperous economy. And that is what the 2000 Act did. Unfortunately, this amendment to the 2000 Act, because of course these figures have to go into an amended Act, well, they're not changing, but if they did change, they would have to go into an amended Act. And what it does, unfortunately, Mr. Chair, and the former Minister of Finance, Dr. Michael Cullen, or now Sir Michael, the Honourable Sir Michael Cullen, would be disappointed, I suspect, if he saw that a piece of legislation under his name, i.e. 2007, carried tax brackets that in fact defied or undermined the philosophy that he took as the Finance Minister when shepherding this 2000 Act bill through the House. I know that Michael Cullen really took great care when he put tax legislation forward to make sure that it was fair for all New Zealanders and not just the top, 0.1%. He made sure that the tax burden carried by New Zealanders was done in a way that was fair for everyone. He made sure that the tax system was equitable. He made sure that it was fit for purpose, and that is what this 2000 legislation did. However, by amending the 2007 legislation to put in the tax brackets or the tax burden put forward by the key government, in fact, I believe undermines the purpose and the philosophy that Michael Cullen and that Labor government, of which the chair was an integral part, of course.
Okay, that's enough.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Come on, sing back.